أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام على المرسلين وسيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى عترة الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وأجل فرجهم. Assalamu alaikum for another show with on Real Talk. Today our guest speaker is Dr. Kate Godfrey Fawcett. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about her, if not actually heard her specifically. She's been very active in the RSE debates that have been going on. So I'm just going to hand it over to you, Dr. Kate. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
If you'd just like to just tell us a little bit about yourself, and especially obviously start off with the RSE because that's how everyone knows you, and then we'll get deeper into getting to know you a little bit outside of the RSE.
Okay. I don't know who I am. Good question. Yeah, so I'm Kate. I think probably I've been obviously converted to Islam around about 25, 26 years ago. Most of the time I've just been quietly kind of bringing up a family and working and things like that.
Is it okay if I just keep stopping you every time you say something that I want to sort of delve a little bit deeper in? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, please do.
So you talked about the fact that you converted about 25, 26 years ago. Yeah. Can I just ask you what brought you into Islam?
Yes, so it was, like I say, it was a long time ago before people really knew what Islam or Muslims were. Particularly, I'm from Devon, so I'd never even heard of it. So when I was about 19 or whatever, I started traveling around the world, and I became increasingly interested in kind of the meaning of life and started kind of thinking kind of quite deeply. Kind of practiced Buddhism for a bit, but not very well. I became a vegetarian, and that was kind of as far as it went. Then I kind of, at the time I was living with a Christian lady, I was renting a room from her, so I kind of started reading the Bible, and there was something there that connected with me. I think the concept of God. I kind of became a Christian in that sense of the world, but I'd always wanted to travel, so I backpacked kind of across the globe for a couple of years.
Wow.
And I remember my first encounter with Muslims was when I was in Turkey, and I went into the Blue Mosque there, and I remember seeing the words Allah and Muhammad, and I didn't know who they were or what they were, and I was confused which one was God and things like that. And I remember seeing some women dressed in black praying, and I thought, oh my God, that looks really weird. So I kind of, this is a very strange thing, and I kind of thought no more about it. I then ended up at the time kind of in Palestine or Israel, again, very ignorant. I didn't know much about the history. But I was kind of attracted more to the Middle East. I then went down to Egypt, and it's kind of when I was in the Sinai, I wanted to kind of understand more about the culture because I love the country. I wanted to know more about it. I was still kind of searching and things. It was kind of in the Sinai, it's beautiful. You've got these kind of mountains, and you can see across Saudi Arabia, and you see all the stars in the sky. So I was really just kind of connecting with nature and God in an open sense. But I started studying and reading, and eventually I just wanted to read the Quran, so I got a copy of the Quran. This is a very kind of compressed version, but I remember just reading the Quran, and I got probably about halfway through and just kind of questioned, do I believe this is the word of God? And I kind of said, yeah, I do, and that was it.
Wow.
There was kind of a physical, geographical journey as well as a spiritual journey, and it just hit me. And yes, alhamdulillah, Allah guided me.
It sounds like it was a very sort of personal journey that you made on your own.
Yeah.
And it was literally the Quran that sort of made you realize that this was the religion, this was the true religion, this is what you want, what you were looking for.
Yeah, the beginning and end, it was the Quran. Allah guided me through his words.
Was there anything specific in the Holy Quran? Because obviously you were reading it in English at that time.
I read a translation. I think the thing that struck me, there were a couple of things. One was particularly for women, the idea of modesty and covering yourself. And that I almost felt, oh my God, I'm home. Because I think growing up in the West, you know, this pressure on women to kind of look a certain way and dress a certain way. And I'd never felt comfortable with that. So just the concept of women could cover themselves, and that was a good thing. That's what Allah wanted. For me, was just a massive, I felt liberated. It felt so... Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sorry, you finish, sorry.
No, it just felt incredibly liberating, and I guess I had some semblance of kind of connection to my fitra, and I think it just resonated with that, which is contrary to how obviously Muslim women are perceived today, as, you know, it's all oppression and but no, I felt liberated. I'm
just looking from the perspective of obviously because I was born a Muslim, and when I talk to Muslim women who are born Muslims, it's that concept of looking outside and thinking, oh, do I really have to cover myself? You know, it's such a headache, and it's not fair, and they can, you know, like, they look so beautiful, and I can look that beautiful, and I can't show it. It just feels like, you know, when you're in there, you don't appreciate it like you seem to have done. And I'm just wondering, what sort of what advice could you give to those who are born Muslims and who do choose to cover themselves, but maybe don't appreciate it the way that you did?
I think there's several things. So like I say, you know, there's no such thing as a bad hair day. You know, you can have a bad hijab day maybe, but yeah, you know, the amount of time that women take and having to do their hair and then makeup. I was never into this stuff anyway, but you know, it's like an hour every morning. And basically they're appeasing. They say, oh, I'm doing it for myself, but it's not. It's still appeasing society, or how society thinks women should view. So it's like, who are you serving? You know, who are we trying to please? And I think when I put the hijab on, don't get me wrong, it was hard in the beginning because people see you a certain way, and it's a very visible expression of your faith, and people judge you. But the moment I did it, I just felt so much stronger, because I knew that I was doing it for Allah. You also feel part of the Muslim community. Other Muslims will recognize and say salam in many cases. So you actually get a strength from it. And there's a kind of a sense of dignity, I think, and people do. There is obviously the abuse and negative attention, but there's also respect as well. In many instances, and it feels very much like a protection as well. I've been, you know, through work in certain environments where I wouldn't necessarily have felt completely safe or comfortable, but just wearing the hijab gave me a layer of kind of security in a way. So that on so many levels. But I would say, even to those, you know, sisters who aren't wearing it, or who may be thinking about doing it, you know, just really understand why you do it, and it has to be for Allah, not to please society or whatever. Because, you know, once you put it on, you never really want to take it off again. So I know it's hard times, but when you do something for Allah, He'll give you the strength to do it. But yeah, it's very much.
Yeah, and I think it's also, if you're not wearing it, the thought of putting it on is quite scary, because it's like, how much will your life change? And then obviously I'm sure that must have been coming into your mind as well. It's like, okay, I've taken this religion, but actually sort of wearing the hijab, you're actually sort of literally announcing it to everyone. Then there's no hiding from it, and then and everything changes, and then, you know, the way people perceive you, the things that you can and cannot do anymore, because now you're actually an ambassador for Islam to a certain extent. So that's
definitely. You have to watch your behaviour and your language. And it has been interesting, you know, and seeing how people treat you negatively as well. And, you know, I get people just, even the other days, somebody just hit me in the street and told me to go away. And I don't know if that's because they just saw a Muslim woman, but there are instances kind of like that. Definitely, we do get that as women. But alhamdulillah, you know, it's a form of jihad as well. And, you know, it just makes me feel stronger in my faith and more determined.
I think in any situation, there's always positives and negatives, right? And it's which one I choose to focus on. If I choose to focus on the negatives, then that's all I'm going to see. If I choose to focus on the positives, then that's where I'm going to get my strength and growth from. So it's like you're saying, sorry.
Say that there's probably the more people, it's a curiosity more than anything. I think I would say people are far more curious about it and want to ask questions than a negative. So that has been my experience of people wanting to ask, often feeling shy to ask, but wanting to kind of understand why, and, know more about it and things like that. So and it's great, it's good dawah as well. So
no, I think for me, I think that the greatest positive is that constant reminder of my connection to Allah. And like you're saying, if I've got my niyyah correct, if I've sort of actually thought about the fact that I'm wearing this because God's told me to do it, and even and when I don't feel like it, that's when He probably rewards me more, because it's like if I look really good and, you know, I'm sort of all dressed up for the wiladat or something, and I look really good, and then to have to wear a scarf on top, it is difficult. And then it's sort of acknowledging that, yes, it is difficult, and you know what, God's acknowledging that it is difficult, and he'll reward me for that difficulty. Whereas if I'm finding it easy, like if I'm having a bad hair day, then it will be easy to just put a scarf on and, you know, life's simple.
Yeah, no, that's it. And it, like you say, it's in the intention, and that's what will give you the strength as well. So that was kind of one reason, but probably the main kind of feeling I got having read the Quran was the sense of this life is temporary, and actually it's the hereafter that we're aiming for. And actually, I only need to please Allah. I don't need to please people. And I just need to worry about the judgment of Allah, not the judgment of people. So that was probably, yeah, the main thing that struck me. And I'd never got that feeling from Christianity. I also read the Bible cover to cover before I read the Quran, but I never got the sense of the kind of importance of the hereafter. It's more about this life, whereas from reading the Quran, this life it's so short. It's all about the next life as well.
It puts everything into perspective, right? It's like whatever you're going through, it gives you that hope, that probably that motivation to sort of continue with whatever's going on in your life situation, because you know that there is compensation that will happen. There will be justice overall.
Yeah, and it makes sense of any hardship, and if we laugh, but you know, and Allah doesn't forget. This is one thing. If you make a dua or whatever, Allah, believe me, Allah will answer it. But you know, like I say, it's 26 years ago or something, and I remember reading the Quran and just crying and just wanting to be close to Allah. And I remember at that time kind of saying, please Allah, use me. I don't mind suffering in this life. Please use me as a tool or whatever to kind of gain your closeness. Which is kind of an interesting link to the RSE. You know,
can I just ask, was there anyone that sort of you turned to sort of guide you, help you? How did you sort of? I will get to the RSE. I'm just very curious on how you sort of proceeded from that. So you came to the realization very much on your own with the Holy Quran, and I'm just wondering how you then proceeded forward with that, and whether you went down the, you know, how did you know which sect to go down? How, you know?
Yeah, well,
I know about the Sunni Shia divide and things like that.
No, well, I mean, probably the true answer, it was through just reading and studying rather than people. I remember I was in Egypt at the time, and I went to Al-Azhar University, and you know, this new convert, kind of expecting all Muslims to be like the Prophet, peace be upon him. And I kind of turned up and I said, have you got any books? I was so hungry, just thirsty, just to read and learn more. And this kind of man took me down this dusty alleyway. And he started going through this cupboard and these old kind of dusty pamphlets. And he gave me something which was just a piece of paper, and then just wanted money for it. So I think they saw this green. So that was my first experience. And I remember I was so heartbroken. I thought, you're not like the Prophet Muhammad.
I'm so sorry.
Don't worry. I'm glad Allah guided me through texts and books, not you know. You know, I think that's what's given me the strength in a way. So yeah, I didn't have great experiences, but
I think that's really powerful, because I think even as you know, people as Muslims who are born Muslims, I think one of the things that, you know, you have a real problem with is when you sort of look around and you say, you know, you see people who claim to be Muslims whose akhlaq is so not like a Muslim's akhlaq should be, and it really sort of makes you question the whole religion, and it shouldn't. Like you're saying, it's their problem, not the religion's problem.
Yeah.
And I think that you seem to have understood that from the beginning, which is beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, we have to differentiate between Islam and Muslims, you know, because I think you see that if people convert through people, they're more likely to leave the religion.
Yeah.
Not always, but if you convert through study and text, it's very unlikely when you kind of get that conviction from Allah, kind of Allah's word. So But obviously I was in Egypt, so obviously it's a Sunni country. I didn't really understand. I mean, I think I came across a hadith that something about there are 72 sects of Islam and only one's going to paradise. And of course that's the Sunnis because they're the biggest. So I thought, okay. So I just kind of followed that. But, I was just learning how to pray and fast. And I was just reading and studying and as much as I could on my own. And I then kind of came back to the UK. Again, I was really just armed with books and stuff. I didn't really get to know many Muslims or anything, but alhamdulillah, I had a very kind of strong connection with Allah and just reading. And that kind of went on. I think I was probably Sunni for 7-8 years. I can't remember. Going through various difficulties in my life, etc., etc., etc. And then I ended up moving to Kilburn, obviously, which is kind of where I am now. And at the time, just again desperate to study. And I started going. I found there's quite a lot of Islamic centres in the area, and so I literally went knocking on doors asking for books and how could I learn. But to my dismay, they were all Shia. So at the time, I thought Shia was this weird little cult, they had fake Qurans hidden under their turbans. They were all lying to you all the time, and they these weird imams and stuff like that. But I was so desperate to study and learn. I thought, okay, I'll go along and I'll take what makes sense to me, and I'll reject the rest, and I'll just read a bit about what they're up to, so I don't get brainwashed into their cult and stuff like that. So I had ended up attending the Imam Hussein alayhi salam Hausa in northwest London, which I think is closed now. But that's where I went to all the lectures. I actually found the people really open, really friendly. And I remember thinking, I've already converted once, and it's quite a process to go through. And I don't know if I can articulate it, but it was kind of, oh my God, am I going through this again? And how, I'm just questioning so much, and it was really, really difficult. So I thought, okay, we'll just study and read. And I read different texts, and I went to sort of Sunni imams, and I talked to obviously people at the Hausa, and tried for maybe a couple of years to get as much information as I could. But it's very hard because you convert into something and you're so sure of that, and then some new information comes in that challenges that, and I guess you want to cling to what you know.
Yeah.
But I remember just crying, oh Lord, please just guide me to the truth. It's so confusing and overwhelming. But I always said, I think that if somebody tries to convince you through fear, that's obviously kind of question that, rather than if people are just open. And I found with the people from the Sunni community I talked to, it was all through fear. The Shia are bad, be careful, they're a cult, whereas with the Shia they just said go and read, go and study, things like that. So that was really helpful. But it was in one of the lectures at the Hausa. So I had been studying, I think, getting there and rereading history and things like that. And the lecturer said something about the key is about imamate, and how the Prophet, you wouldn't leave a baby, an infant, without making sure there was a successor to look after the baby if you knew you were departing. So that was a turning point. But I also remember, I think the same lecturer, he said the Prophet alayhi salam. In my Sunni head, I heard it as the Prophet Ali salam. And obviously the Shia worship of Prophet Ali. So I thought, oh my God, I've got them, they are. But luckily I got over that hurdle because I asked him to clarify what he meant. But I used to say Prophet, peace, alayhi salam, something like that. So that was the turning point of imamate and understanding the role of the Ahlul Bayt. And that was, maybe 16, 17 years ago. So, but I think I just feel I've come close to the authentic Islam, and I think it's an ongoing process, understanding the role of the Ahlul Bayt, and there's so much, the learning continues, but it really is about, I think, just having an open heart, open mind, trying to be discerning about the information. but you know, and it was hard as well, and it's obviously hard when you convert because you kind of, your non-Muslim family friends obviously have opinions about it. And but when I went from Sunni to Shia, it was equally bad, if not worse, actually, because all the Sunni thought I'd possibly, you know, kind of gone and joined the Rafidi cult and I'd left Islam and stuff like that. So that was very hard. But alhamdulillah, I feel very, very blessed because Allah has guided me, and inshallah will continue to guide me. So yeah.
Alhamdulillah, that's amazing. And then sort of what made you become so passionate about the RSC, which is obviously what everyone knows you about for?
Yeah, I think at the time I you know, I had 3 young children. I needed to kind of obviously raise them and have a job just because of my situation. And I remember at the time I decided to study psychology. And again, I'd wanted to study full-time Islamic studies, but I remember again saying to Allah, and again, Allah doesn't forget, that I'm going to study psychology, but please use my skills knowledge when I've qualified to bring it back to the community. And I think so thoroughly, it was just coming up for 3 years ago, probably, that, I mean, I'd finished my doctorate, so I studied all the way to doctorate, did that, and then became aware of...
Can I just stop you there? I think it's really powerful, and I just in case people didn't catch this, I think this is really, really powerful. The fact that while you were studying, you kept having that conversation with God and sort of let me use the studies to sort of do something worthwhile for you or for Islam, or for what were the actual prayer that you had while that you had?
It was, I wanted, again, it's all about gaining Allah's closeness for the next life, and I think just wanting to serve him through obviously helping the community. I didn't really have any idea how. I thought maybe mental health workshops.
Yeah, no, that's really beautiful, because I think a lot of the times we do things without sort of having a clear niyyah, and I think that's really beautiful to sort of realize that having that clear niyyah actually really sort of helps and motivates you, especially when you're going through difficult times, like when exam times and things like that. I think, you know, it's like if you know that the purpose is for God that you're doing this, then you know that God's going to be by your side, and I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, and I think anything we do, I don't know, anything I do, it has to be with the intent of gaining his closeness. You know, obviously there are going to be things that are helpful in dunya, and that's good, but ultimately it's got to be beneficial, I think, to humanity and obviously to gaining Allah's closeness. And actually, alhamdulillah, psychology met both those needs, and I think because I studied in depth, particularly the more kind of counselling psychotherapy, which involves jihad of the nafs, and kind of understanding the personality, you know yourself, you know your Lord. Still working on that, but yeah, so it's very good, very helpful. At the same time, you can also help people kind of move back close to their fitra, as well as overcome kind of problems that they're facing, alleviate suffering. So it was a really good, useful, ongoing journey. But yeah, so I kind of finished my studies. I'd been working obviously for a while, and then it was in Muharram, coming up for 3 years ago, that I kind of, I'd known for a while that schools they were talking about teaching this to children, but it never really kind of happened. Became aware of that they were going to implement at RSC in 2020. But again, the way my mind works, I kind of want to get to the root of things. I want to know, where's this come from? Not that they're just going to teach RSE to our 4-year-olds, but okay, what's behind this? What's the bigger picture here? What's the context? Where is this coming from? So that kind of inquiring kind of questions going on. So yeah, I just started doing some research and looking into it, and just felt that I've used this phrase before, that I felt down sort of this rabbit hole, and it was kind of saw what was going on a far larger global scale, and obviously the roots of it kind of tied up with a lot of psychology. Obviously there's this agenda, comprehensive sexuality education that's being pushed through the United Nations, to researchers such as Alfred Kinsey, who's well known for his kind of paedophilia kind of research and things like that, as well as the whole kind of LGBT kind of strategy that's being rolled out, as well as population control. There's whole different strands. So I became aware of that and thought, oh my God. And then I started looking at RSE, and I think, oh my, is RSE the UK version of this kind of comprehensive sexuality education? And I did research into some of the resources, the organisations, and I could make the links that, this is what is coming to the UK, almost like this tidal wave, and people are completely oblivious. They've been so strategic and so kind of planned for so long. Planning it for so long, and it was like, oh my God, I've got this information and I need to warn people. So
at any point did you sit there and think, I wish I didn't know, I wish I hadn't opened up this kind of worms?
No. I was like, I remembered my dua when I converted, and then again when I started psychology. So I thought, okay. I never envisioned what would happen. I thought it might just be doing a few local talks to parents and stuff like that. So I'd started over a couple of years ago, just at a few centres, just letting parents know. And but it's also the situation. But it's like, how do I get that across?
Can I? Sorry. I know I keep interrupting you, but I just need to sort of. I think it'd be really good learning for us women. Okay, so you're a woman who's obviously reverted to Islam. You're going to these mosques which you are visiting, and you maybe have become part of this community. And you've suddenly come across this RSE stuff, which you've seen the problem with it, and you feel like you need to do something about it. How did you actually initiate the first? What was the first thing that you did? How did you actually get to a stage where you're actually, being given the platform to talk to people? Because I think a lot of the times we use the fact that we're women to sort of actually say, oh, we can't do anything because the men aren't going to listen, or we're not going to be given the platform, or we're not going to be able to. So I just want to sort of get people to see how you did it. So maybe it might sort of encourage others to sort of stand up when they feel when they need to.
Yeah, I think going back to Osman Haram, and obviously reflecting on the legacy of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, what he did, stood up for his truth, what Zainab alayhi salam did. So that gave me the fire, and you just have to speak the truth. It doesn't matter. I was very aware of the nature, the whole kind of political, if you speak out against certain narratives, they will try and knock you down. So I was kind of aware of that, but I never thought it would actually happen. But so that gave me the fire, if you like, the passion to do it. I wrote a document actually with all the research. So, and I sent it to a couple of alims to read, and some community members as well. I was then invited by IUS in South London to do a talk. So that was my first talk. I hate public speaking. It's my biggest kind of phobia ever, and I've avoided it all my life up until RSE. So I remember just not sleeping 2 months in advance. I was so nervous just about public speaking. I just did it, and actually the audience were like kind of gobsmacked, because it's almost like naming an elephant in a room. I think people kind of knew something was happening, but the moment somebody names it, people go, oh my God, yes. And even the ones that were skeptical, what I found after the talks, parents would go home and talk to their children, and the children would have to confirm that this was already happening in schools. So Sheikh Hanif was there at the first one, and he was like gobsmacked as well. But he then managed to set up another talk, and it was building slowly like that.
In a way, I suppose it's one, connecting to the role models that we have, and also realizing that you'd made this dua to serve Allah through your studies and everything that the reason he'd guided you to Islam and all of these things, and doing something for your akhirah as well, for your hereafter, and then trusting him to actually, when you come out of your comfort zone and into a situation which is very uncomfortable for you, to actually trust him to give you the confidence, give you the power, give you the strength to make it work out. Did you think that you would flop? Did what was going through your mind? Because obviously it's like, you're very uncomfortable. What was
I think just, and you know, that's because trusting Allah has a plan, I think, on so many levels, because I knew I was doing it for him, I knew I was doing it for Imam Hussein, I knew I was doing it for Imam Mahdi. And I think even if nobody turns up, if nobody turns up, it does, for me, it's about not being attached to the outcome. As long as I've done my duty, it doesn't matter if 10 people turn up, with one person turns out. That's with Allah. That's not my business. I just have to do my duty. And then, yeah, when you're not attached to the outcome or what the people think, say, you'll be okay. So I've done my duty to Allah, you know.
It's actually just literally keeping your niyyah clean and pure, and leaving the results to God.
And that is and I think obviously with my psychology, that is such an important process also, because you don't want the ego to get involved. And not to say it won't, because we're human, but I always would reflect afterwards, you know, on what I'd said. Is it accurate? If you get praise, and again, not being attached to any praise, because every praise is an insult. And that, you know, I've faced both a lot, you know, a lot of attacks from within the community as well as the wider community, media. But when you're not attached to the praise or the insults, it helps you keep your niyyah pure, or kind of clearer anyway. So that was very important. But yeah, so that it kind of grew gradually, and then it was at the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon his birthday, the Love Muhammad, that was organised, I think, by AIM, and it was a mixture of Sunni and Shia. And I remember I had a 10-minute slot just to do a talk on sort of Stop RSE and the awareness I was starting to create, although it was still very small at that day, that time. And I hadn't prepared or anything. I just did my 10-minute little bump. And obviously it was recorded and then put on Facebook. And that's kind of what, you know, triggered everything. And suddenly I was getting people, can you do a talk here? Can you do a talk there? You know, all up and down the UK every weekend. And it you know, it wasn't easy, because at virtually every talk there would be people attacking me as well, thinking that I was making it all up and I was over exaggerating. But at the same time, a lot of support and people really starting to wake up. I then obviously set the petition up to try and get parents the right to withdraw their children. And I think at the time it was the fastest growing government petition. And obviously we got it to Parliament. But I think because of that, that drew the attention of people like the National Secular Society, who then reported me to my professional body. They then went to all the media, and suddenly my face is in the Daily Mail, above that of Osama bin Laden, and I'm being accused of all these different things, and all my work, you know. So it was like boom, 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 boom. And but again, it's a niyyah of, it doesn't matter, I'm doing this for Allah.
But it must have been quite difficult, though, even though you're keeping the niyyah clean. Obviously, that sort of pushback that you're getting from people, and it's like, you know, you're sort of sitting there thinking, okay, God, I'm doing it for you. I need some help here. It's like, can you not make it a little bit easier? You know?
Yeah, human. Yeah, it's. I think at the time it was happening, it felt very surreal, and obviously, just to experience going through a smear campaign. I thought there might be a risk at the time or before that I'd lose my job. I didn't know that I'd lose my career over it. And obviously, if that's Allah's will, then I am okay with that, because career is a dunya thing. Obviously, it's where I want to work for Allah, not. But yeah, it does have a big impact, because some of your risk is gone, and you know, I've got children or whatever, and parents I'm, you know, have to look after. So at the time you're kind of going through it, and it's, I think, again, because of psychology, I've got insight into the psychological processes that has helped me, because it does take a toll on you. And it's, I don't know how to explain it, but you carry the shame of the perpetrator in a way. And it's like, I feel like I'm being given, like a murderer that's been given a new identity. Wherever I go, I think if somebody Googles me, they're going to think I'm this terrible person. And so even today, I'm grappling with that, and nobody wants to employ me, because they go onto Google and they just see all these pages of this horrendous stuff. So yeah, it's very, very difficult, and it affects obviously every area of kind of your life as well. But it is like just trusting Allah has a plan. he doesn't kind of give me more than I can handle. Also, I think he pushes you to the edge quite often. But it is literally when you feel there's nothing other than Allah to rely on. It's testing all those little sayings that we have, really, that, you know, risk is in Allah, don't worry with Allah, don't worry about it, Allah won't give you more. But when you're really put in that position of you really only have Allah to rely on, then yeah, it's testing faith.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I'm just going to sort of say, I know a lot of times when I've had these conversations with people, they'll turn around and say, yeah, but you know what, you have to live in the real world, and it's all fair and dandy to sort of say, okay, you know what, trust Allah, risk is with Allah, but you know, we have to do, you know, sort of provide for our families. We have to, I can't have my family starving to death. I have to, and they may actually be sitting there thinking, well, you're a woman, so it's not that big a deal. It's like, you know, your husband's still there, he may be providing. So I'm just trying to think of other things that people may be thinking, and how you would actually say, you know, I mean, how are you so comfortable with just sort of saying, oh, you know what, honestly, risk is from Allah, and I know He's not going to let me down. And was there times when you felt let down? Were there times when you had to go without, or your family? Did you?
Yeah, I don't really want to go too much into my personal circumstances, but it's like, you know, I don't come from a typical background, and it's a large part of my life I've been a single parent, and I don't have much, you know, backup. So it has pushed very much to the wire. I had no idea. Like I said, at the time, I thought even if I lose my job, I'll be able to get another one. And so I worked freelance. I had different streams, but Allah and His wisdom took everything away from me.
Wow.
The only thing I had was some savings, which is what I've been able to rely on. But as each week, day, month goes by, and I'm applying for jobs, not getting them, it does get harder. And it's still, I'm doing what I can, but I don't know. Maybe Allah's trying to push me in a different way. So I don't have the comfort of various backups. So
so that's really, really powerful, I think, and thank you for sharing that. I'm really grateful for that, because I think it's really powerful to realize that, you know what, yes, you were pushed to the limit, and you know, you're on your own, and you're having to sort of provide for your family, and you've got kids, and you know, you need to provide for them as well. Was there at any point that you felt that God wasn't there, or God had let you down, or it was just too much, or, you know, sort of God just stop, it's just I can't cope? You may think I can, but I really can't.
No, I never thought that. I just tried to think, is He pushing me in a different way here? So I guess it's that kind of trying to be creative. Does He want me to do that or do that? No, I've never doubted that, or never kind of got angry with Him, because I know there's wisdom in everything He does. And any hardship now, inshallah, there'll be reward in the hereafter, and ultimately that's kind of what we want. So and I know that He will, you know, I am trying to set up another project to support parents, and we can maybe talk about that another time. But you know, I'm doing that because I feel I do have a lot of skills, knowledge that I feel the community can benefit from, particularly from a psychological point of view. And the reality is very likely that I won't be able to get a job in the mainstream society now, because people won't want to hire me. I'm still under investigation, and I don't know what they're up to. But that's why I'm trying to have to think, okay, I need to find another way to bring, kind of allow Allah to put His risk into it. Because I know, it's that saying, you know, the birds don't worry, Allah, our risk is decreed. But it is about, I know I have to tie a camel. It's not just about saying, oh, it's in Allah's hands. It's about tying your camels. So I am working away on something, trying to see what I can do, and inshallah, if that's the right thing, Allah will kind of put His risk there. But yeah, so it's never kind of, you know, sometimes I think, oh, this is, again, careful what you wish for, because it's I made these du'as and Allah's answered it. I do think having a sense of humour helps as well, get through the hard times. Yeah, because I know He won't let me down. I guess it's testing my faith, but it doesn't mean it's easy. And yeah, at times I just cry, and you know, I thought, I don't know what more I can do. Obviously read my du'as, try what I can, and I'm human. I worry about this, or I worry about my parents and things like that. So yeah, it's been a very difficult 18 months since it all kind of came out in the media and stuff. But I guess, you know, it just feels Allah is shunting me in a slightly different direction to what I envisaged. So
Wow.
yes,
Can I ask what's the thing that sort of is, if there's one or two things that really helps you when you're really, really sort of down, or when you're really upset, what are the things that help you at that moment?
I think it is kind of praying, making dua and praying, and there are like little phrases in the Quran, you know, that Allah is closer to than your jugular vein, and you know, things like that He knows.
Sort of reminding you of His own words, to sort of remind you of what He's telling you. And when you do the dua,
so Allah doesn't lie; He doesn't break promises. You know, so, that's it. And I think because I knew, I guess, you know, as much as I could, I made my intention for Allah. So I think, and maybe that's why, because I did, and I say to Allah, I did do this for you. And, you know, you've got to look after, you've got to have my back now. I'm happy to go through this, but you've got to have my back, and, you know, kind of.
So again, having that conversation with God, that must help as well, right? To actually sort of, and do you feel that when you're having a conversation with God, you're actually speaking out loud rather than just in your mind?
Not verbally out loud. It's probably more in my mind and stuff like that. Or if I'm on my lot gardening, or if I'm sitting on my prayer mat, wherever, or if I'm driving, it's kind of just having that communion, I think, directly with Him as well. And also Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, I think, knowing that he knows obviously what we're all going through, and just wanting to work for him and help, you know, do something to hasten his reappearance, inshallah. So that's those kind of two things.
Wow. Yeah. So where are you at the moment with the whole RSE thing? And
well, I think obviously, luckily, you know, by Allah's will, and you know, Allah's will alone, it did create a lot of awareness, and, you know, up and down the country, alhamdulillah, the Muslims are all generally, even the Christians, and, you know, I've worked with across different faith groups, so there's a lot more awareness. There's even been some small victories in terms of, particularly in Warwickshire, one of the RSE syllabuses has been withdrawn because it was found to be unsuitable. There's been some court cases to do with the transgender issue that schools and councils have now rejected their attempts to get into schools. So there's small victories. Obviously, because of what I've been through over the last year, 18 months, it has taken its toll, and I've been having to grapple with that, whereas lots of, you know, various family issues, and it seems to be being relentless. So I've been doing the odd talk, but not so many. Obviously, I'm under investigation, so that stifles me a bit. There's still the website. I'm still supporting people on WhatsApp. I have WhatsApp groups, and a lot of parents contact me directly to ask for support. So I've just been working, I suppose, more kind of low key. But I've also realised that the next step is the need to support parents in having conversations. Actually, we need, you know, there's another strategy needed. So I'm just working on something there, which hopefully I'll let people know about in the next few months. You know, just.
So that's amazing. It's like you've not just, you know, it's you've not sort of thought yourself, you know what, I've done my bit. Now I can just sort of just chill. It's like, okay, what's the next project? What can I do now? Well, you know, how can I sort of serve him?
Ongoing, and it's, you know, I do want to do more workshops and carry on speaking the truth ultimately, because that's what it is. So I think obviously the COVID-19 put a dampener on everything, although it's online. But yeah, inshallah, I'll get my second wind, and to just continue to try and kind of help people, I think, and protect our children and our next generation.
I know, speaking for the Muslim community, I feel like, you know, we owe you a debt of gratitude, because I think a lot of people didn't have their eyes open to what RSE was about. So, you know, you've really helped people open up their eyes to what it's about. And I honestly think the beautiful thing is, although it's such a negative thing, it's actually a lot of positives come out of it, because it's there's been conversations happening between parents and children, which weren't happening before. So, you know, like I said, in every situation, there is positive and negatives. With this whole RSE thing, parents are actually talking to their children because they're so scared of what's happening. You know, before it was happening, but it was happening under the sort of,
yeah.
You know, now it's like out in the open, and you've sort of put it out there in the open, and so parents are having these conversations, which is amazing. So,
yeah, no, definitely. In a way, I think that, like you say, there's a blessing in everything. And I think maybe 10 years ago, a lot of these things were still happening, but
yes.
we just weren't talking about it because we weren't sure, because it's almost naming it now, and it's got so bad, it's forced people, and because of those conversations, that parents are more likely to protect their children and, you know, hopefully get them back. So there is a blessing. And the other thing, although it's a trial what I'm going through, I also see it as a blessing and an honor, and I feel, you know, I'm very grateful to Allah for allowing me to do this work as well. I feel very humbled by it, and so yeah, I feel very lucky. I think that also helps me kind of get through. So
well, that's amazing. If I was to ask you in the next sort of 10 minutes that we have, what would you want people to go away with from this interview that we're doing? I mean, some of just the points that you feel like you've learned from everything that God's put you through, and the growth that's come out of you. What would you want to share with other people that they may feel is of value?
I think there's probably two things. I mean, one obviously is making your question clear, that, you know, you want to serve Allah. If you want to do something, you generally want to do it to serve Allah, then make the dua, and He will give you the courage and the strength and the opportunity to do it. Don't be afraid of what people are going to say, or if you're going to be judged. Like I said, it's we're here to serve Allah and please Him, and work for, you know, our Imam alayhi salam, not to appease people. This life is short. It's going to be over in a flash. It's the hereafter.
I'm just wondering whether a lot of people may be scared to make that dua after hearing what you've been put through.
Yeah, well, you know, pick what you want to do. Don't like to suffer. So I think, why was I asking for that? But
it's like when you ask for patience, right? God's only going to, He's going to put you in situations where you can actually then learn patience, because it just doesn't happen just like that, sort of thing.
And everybody has got something, and that's with the whole RSC. Everybody can bring something. You know, we've all got different skills, talents. You know, everybody has something to bring, and Allah has given us a potential that we need to try and aim for that potential. So that's when I think the other thing is a woman, you know, as a woman as well. And, you know, and it's interesting having done the talks around the country across a variety of different kind of Muslim communities, Sunni, Shia, Deobandi, blah, 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 blah. I think the main obstacle I hit is that obviously I'm a woman. You know, a lot of the men weren't happy that it was a woman doing this work, but you could say, well, why aren't the men doing it? Why did it have to take a woman to do it? And actually, as a woman, I can talk more easily with the mothers and the sisters. Obviously, second that I'm Shia, you know, so there's been a lot of obstacles. I'm a woman, I'm a Shia, then I'm white. So, you know, that other kind of thing comes into it. But actually, if, like I say, if you're doing it for Allah, you don't worry about those things. And, you know, as long as you have your integrity and your modesty, and, you know, we can do these things. And it's a duty as well. So for the sisters listening, yeah, don't let the obstacles, as long as you're following the rules of Islam, you're doing it for Allah, then don't worry about what people think. Just keep going. So
I think it's that thing as well, that honor truly comes from Allah, right? It's you know, people may honor you for a while, but that honor will then disappear. It's you know, when honor comes from Allah, that honor sort of is forever, sort of eternity. It's like, as you were speaking, I was actually thinking of Lady Hajara, and how she had everything against her. She was like, you know, a woman, she was black, she was a slave, she was a second wife, so she had everything against her in the society that she lived in, and yet it is her footsteps that all men and women have to walk, you know, and follow. And it's amazing to see how much honor she was given just because she had that tawakkul Allah, that sort of faith in Allah and trust in Allah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's beautiful. It's and I think a lot of the times as women, we tend to sort of use that as an excuse not to step up, because it's like, yeah, but I'm a woman, what am I supposed to do? And, you know, the men won't listen to me. And it's about sort of
If you speak the truth, it will resonate with people. And I think, and I'm not a feminist at all, so and I don't believe in this, but it's, I think it's we have dignity as a woman, and it's about strength. And for me, it was Zainab alayhi salam. What she did, she spoke out kind of against the tyrants of her time. So for me, she's a role model as well. And like I say, if you're speaking a truth, it will resonate kind of with people and their fitra. And I think that's what's happened. We're just with Zealers with like the channels through, and I think the more we can clean ourselves, and it's ongoing. It's a bit like a sink. You get clogged up all the time, but as long as we keep trying to clean it, it leaves more space for Allah to kind of work through us. So, not that constant deblocking. But yeah, I think that's it. And anything's possible with Allah. So.
And so du'as, specifically sort of trying to do ask Allah to give you opportunities in your life is what I'm getting, and maybe not being scared because God won't give you the opportunities you're not ready for. So a lot of the times it's like we'll hold back, and otherwise it's like, but I don't know if I'm ready for this, or don't test me. A lot of the times we'll actually say to God, don't test me through this, don't test me through my children, don't test me through this, don't test me through that, and it's like, why am I putting these conditions on? Why not just trust Allah to test you through what And I think it's reminding yourself, and I think that what I've got from your talk is it's amazing. It's reminding yourself that God knows what your potential is, and He's just trying to get you to reach that potential. And we sometimes don't know what our potential is. We don't have that self-confidence or self-esteem, and if we just trust in Allah, we would get that.
And it is, I think how many of us reach on, we don't know what we're capable of. Only Allah knows. That was one of, again, the dua, please Allah help me reach my potential. And really anything is possible with Him. And patience, He'll answer your duas in the time that He knows is best. For me, it took 26 years. So, and He won't forget. So, He won't forget, and He keeps His promises. So, patience. He'll know. And again,
I'm sure when you weren't expecting your duas to be answered the way that they have been answered. So again, trusting that He has answered them the way that He knows is the best way, rather than the way that you think it should be answered.
That's always the case. So many examples that's happened. You make a dua and then He answers it, but not in the way that you think. It's the opposite often, but you can see the wisdom in it afterwards. So
on hindsight, right?
Wisdom.
Amazing. Sorry, we've got a question here. Someone's actually asking if you can give some sort of update on the RSE situation. Is it still going ahead with making it compulsory from September 2021?
Yes, so it's still becoming compulsory in September 2020, so in a couple of months' time. But due to the virus, the government the schools have until the summer term to prepare. So if the schools haven't consulted parents, they don't have to start teaching it until the summer term. But schools aren't automatically going to give parents that leeway. So it's very important that parents actually still actively engage with the schools. Make sure you get the consultation. If you haven't been consulted, say, we need consultation. You don't have to start teaching until kind of April, May time. It's very important that parents kind of push that. And still, you have to be consulted. Your opinions are valid. They have to take religious teachings, beliefs into consideration. There is more awareness of the political nature of it with certain kind of lobby groups trying to get into schools. So there is awareness. Like I said, there's been several cases now in the papers where schools and councils have rejected it. So it's the same thing, ask to see the resources, keep talking to your children. Inshallah, that's kind of part of what I want to work on is to support parents of the conversations to kind of protect their children and protect them as well. So
that's amazing.
That's not kind of currently.
So it is September 2020, not September 2021. It's this September coming that it's supposed to be compulsory. But if the schools feel that they're not ready or they've not had this consultation, then they have till the summer term to bring it in force. So it's important for us as parents to contact our schools, find out what's happening, ask if we can be involved in that consultation.
definitely, and demand a consultation. The school have to give that to you. So have your voices heard. That's what parents can do. So.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. Again, just to sort of reiterate some of the things that you've talked about, which have been really, really powerful, and it's for everyone to take a lesson from, is niyyah. Make sure that we keep our niyyah specifically for God, and realizing how important that is. Secondly, to have that trust in Allah, that He is there, He doesn't abandon you. Even when you're going through the most difficult times, there is a reason behind it. There is a growth behind it. And I think the third thing that you keep saying is that He doesn't forget your du'as. It's like He answers. It may not be when you want it. It may not be how you want it, but He does answer your du'as. And not to limit our du'as. I think I think that was really powerful. It's like a lot of the times we limit our du'as, even if it's something like, Ya Allah, don't let me. I know a lot of the times, the older you get, you sort of pray to Allah, don't give me a long drawn out illness, don't make me muhtaj is the word that's like, don't make me sort of dependent on anyone. But maybe there may be growth in me from being put in that situation, and maybe there may be growth in my children from serving me and taking care of me in that situation. So rather than limiting our du'as, actually sort of ask Allah directly just to help us grow and to our potential.
And there's always blessing in any hardship He gives. There's no bad for the believer, isn't it? There's always whatever the believer gets is good. So there's always a growth or learning in the misfortune or whatever. So, but it's looking for that and seeing it that way,
and seeing the positive in all the negatives that's in that situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Is there any last words you'd like to say before we finish? There's so much there that you've given me to think about.
Just have a lot of love for the community, and again, I would say if there's parents struggling, you can contact me through the Stop RSE website, and I still hope that I can continue to kind of help parents and children, because it's incredibly difficult, very difficult time for parenting. It is a jihad for all parents. So but hopefully I can bring kind of my experience or kind of skills, knowledge to serve the community, inshallah. But I need your du'as as well. So and the support has also been amazing. So I want to thank everybody as well for all your help and support, because without that it would have been a lot harder to get through the last year. I think just having the moral support and things. So thank you.
No, thank you so much for everything you've done for the Muslim community, for the parents in general, not even just in the Muslim community, and for all parents. I think it's amazing what you have done, and I know I will do a special dua for you today after between my my Maghrib and Isha. I will make sure that I do a special dua for you. There's been so many messages. I don't know if you can see them, but saying how inspirational you are, how enlightened you are, and how amazing you are as a person. And really giving us food for thought. So thank you so much. Thank you for agreeing for this interview. Thank you for being so open and sharing your life experience. There's a lot of learning that I know I'm going to take away for sure. Sort of mull over and think about, what am I doing with my life? I really need to get myself sorted.
I think that all the time. Don't worry about me. Yeah, we're all there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
If you need anyone on board with this new project that you're starting, please keep me in mind. I would love to work with you.
Maybe another time I would let people know as well. That would be great. And hopefully in 2 to 3 months I'll kind of be able to kind of share it a bit more. So
inshallah. Sounds amazing. If you need any help from anyone from me at all, please get in touch. Thank you very much again for spending this hour with us and sharing your life story and being very open with us. Thank you. Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, God will reward you. And I pray that things become a little bit easier.
Inshallah. I'm sure it will. Yeah.
And thank you for all of you for joining us on Real Talk. Inshallah, next week we have Nishat Bhimani, who will be sharing her experience. And for those of you who know Nishat, she has a child who's has Down syndrome, but that's not just all that she will be sharing. She'll be sharing her whole life story. So please join us next week at the same time, 8 o'clock, inshallah. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair. نفرش with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum.